Good morning. So we'll start 7th session on chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. This will be the last session on the chapter Diversity. So in our previous class we understood about the animal kingdom, that there are 10 phylums in the animal kingdom. Which are those? How are they classified? Based on their body type, their coelom and segmentation, different examples on them. What are the germ layers? So we understood in that. Next, when we talk about the last phylum, that is Chordata, it is further bifurcated in terms of Protochordata or protocord and vertebrata. So protocords which have notochord, that is they have some rod-like structure running from their back, but in vertebrata they are fully developed. That is, the notochord which is present like a cartilaginous rod-like structure is fully developed in the form of a vertebral column, and that we call as a vertebrata. In vertebrata we have again several classification, that is we study about Pisces, Amphibia, Reptilia, Apes and Mammalia. Now the word or the name itself will suggest this. Pisces, when we talk about, we discuss about fishes. Amphibia, we all know it's related to frog and its different varieties. Reptilia, like crocodiles, lizards, etc. Apes, that is birds. Mammalia is the higher order animals as well as we human beings. So in these vertebrata, we will be understanding their characteristics based on their respiratory organs. Now here we will not discuss the body type as we discussed in the first few phylums. We will understand about their respiratory organs, number of heart chambers, are they warm-blooded or cold-blooded, what is the form of an exoskeleton, are they oviparous or viviparous, and examples on them. Now before we proceed, I would like to discuss what are warm-blooded and cold-blooded animals. Now animals, we human beings will come under warm-blooded animals, because we are called warm-blooded because we can maintain our body temperature, or we can say we have a same type of body temperature, right? That is a normal body temperature what we talk about. Now when we talk about cold-blooded animals, these can adjust or change the body temperature pertaining to the surroundings and the environment. So this is about warm-blooded and cold-blooded. When we talk about oviparous and viviparous, oviparous are the ones which will lay eggs of their young ones, right? Viviparous, which will give birth to the young ones. These will lay eggs, right? And viviparous means it will give birth to the young ones. Now we will understand which of these will come under which category. Now first, when we talk about Pisces, those are nothing but fishes. So what about the respiratory organs? Respiratory organs are in the form of gills, right? You all know when we draw a fish, right? We draw gills to that, correct? So these are the respiratory organs of fishes. Now number of heart chambers. Now as we all know, we human beings have 4 heart chambers, right? So about heart, its number of chambers, how the blood is pumped, through which the blood gets pumped out and comes out to the body. We all study about circulatory system in your 10th standard. Now here we only classify them based on the number of heart chambers. We will not know which chambers they have, only number of chambers. Number of heart chambers, they only have 2. Warm-blooded, they come under cold-blooded. The exoskeleton, the outer body has a scales on them. These are oviparous, that is they lay eggs in the water. Now examples when we talk about, there are 2 different categories in fishes. One which we can say is the fishes which have cartilaginous skeleton type are called as, we can call them as a cartilaginous type of fishes. And another fishes which have bony type of skeleton are called as bony fishes. So examples of cartilaginous fishes could be shark, etc. And examples of bony fishes can be tuna, rohu, etc. If you remember, we have done about these fishes in fish farming in the chapter. So there we have come across different types of fishes, right? So this is about the category Pisces, vertebrata. We'll move to the next one, amphibia. Amphibians means one which can stay both on land as well as in water are called as amphibians, right? The examples here, amphibians, we can talk about frog, toad, salamander, etc. Respiratory organs, we have written here gills as well as lungs. That means it uses gills when it is in water, right? And when it is on land, it will use the lungs. It cannot use gills when it is on land. So you can ask me now, where are the gills present in the frogs? They are not visible, but frogs do have a gills, a small type, which is used for respiratory organ in water, and when they are on land, they will use the lungs. So it has 3 heart chambers. They are cold-blooded. They do not have any scales on their body, but they have a moist skin, what you can say. These are oviparous. They lay eggs. Now here, but though we know that these frogs are, they are amphibians, they stay both on water, on land and water. These will lay eggs only in water. So example, frog, toad, salamander, etc. We'll move to the third one, reptilia. So what comes under reptiles? Crocodiles, then lizards, etc. So respiratory organs are lungs. These all reptiles have 3-chambered heart, but there is one exception. Crocodile has 4-chambered heart. You have to remember here, you cannot be writing 4-chambered heart here, because reptiles crocodile which comes under reptiles is the only option or the only exception which has a 4-chambered heart. Otherwise, all other reptiles have 3-chambered heart. They are cold-blooded. They have scales on their body. These are oviparous. That means it lays eggs, right? We'll move to the next one, eggs. Eggs means nothing but variety of birds what we know. So respiratory organs are lungs. They have 4-chambered heart. These are warm-blooded. So if you have observed it, if they have 4-chambered, they are warm-blooded. Again, exception is crocodile. Crocodile will not come into it. So 4-chambered heart, they are warm-blooded. So they have exoskeleton in the form of feathers, right? So, and these are oviparous. That means they lay eggs. The last when we come here is mammalia. So mammalia, when we talk about the word mammalia, because of the word or of the term mammary glands. Now respiratory organ is lungs, 4-chambered heart, warm-blooded. Exoskeleton is in the form of a hair or a fur. Now hair on human beings, what we can tell, fur on different animals. These are viviparous, that means they give birth to the young ones. But exception, we have 2 animals or mammalia which comes under that, which lay eggs. Those are platypus and platypus is one of the example. 1 or 2 examples are given in the book, which you can always refer. There are 1 or 2 animals which will give or which will lay eggs. Though it is under mammalia, we have written viviparous here. There are 2 or 3 exceptional animals which lay eggs. Now when I was talking about mammalia, it has come from the word mammary glands. Now mammary glands are present in the animals so that they can feed their young ones. So mammary glands produces milk which they can feed to the young ones when they are born. Apart from that, they also have sweat glands and several other glands. So these are the different characteristics of vertebrata. We understood about that respiratory organs, number of heart chambers, whether they are cold-blooded or warm-blooded, what is a type of exoskeleton present, either they are viviparous, that is give birth to young ones, or oviparous, that is lay eggs, and examples of these vertebrata. So then we complete this part of animal kingdom, that is we complete the classification, kingdom classification, right from the first what we started, plant kingdom classification and animal kingdom classification, we complete it here. We have a very small part left out which is called as nomenclature. I want you all to make a note of this and we'll move on to the very small part of the chapter nomenclature. That's the end of it. So we have a last part of the lesson, that is binomial nomenclature. So before we go with the definition or what is binomial nomenclature, I'll make it one thing very clear. Now for example, we refer to so many things in our day-to-day life, that is things in the sense animals. We refer to tiger, cat, dog, humans, like we tell that in a particular language. For example, in English, we call it as a human beings, we call it as a tiger, we call it as a mango. Let that be fruits, animals, because here nomenclature when we talk about the names of the different plants, fruit bearing plants, flower bearing plants and different animals when we talk about. So these animals, fruits or plants are named in different languages. For example, if I take a human being, in Hindi we call a human being as Admi, or in Kannada we call a human being as a Manushya, right? So we have different names, human being, Manushya or Admi. So which is the correct one? How to give a particular name or a thing common for everybody so that everybody will understand it. So that is something called as a binomial nomenclature. That means the scientific system of naming each species of organisms with two names, a genus name and a species name. Now, a genus name and a species name. Have you heard this somewhere now, genus and species? Yes, we have done this in the hierarchy of classification where species come in the last of the classification, right? So, we identify the name of a particular plant, fruit or an animal with their genus name and their species name. For example, and this was given by a scientist or a biologist, Carus Linnaeus. So, according to him, humans are named as Homo sapiens. Tigers' scientific name is Panthera tigris. Mangoes, fruit mango, scientific name is Magnifera indica. That means here, if you have observed, the first name is a genus and the second name is the species of humans. There is a particular way of writing this. Now, if you can observe here, I have written Homo H in capital and S in small letter. Homo H and humans H, right? No, that does not matter here, whichever it is. But still, always the first letter is a capital letter. That means a genus always represents in a capital letter, wherein species always represents in a small letter. For tiger, Panthera, T is capital, tigris, T is in small letter. For mango, it is Magnifera, M in capital, indica, I in small letter. So the one way of writing this is always represent the scientific name into here. That is why binomial nomenclature. Binomial means two in terms of genus and in terms of species. So when we write them, we write the genus name first, followed by a species name, and while printing, right now this is just a handwritten, but while printing it, these are always, scientific name are always printed in italics. If you come across any of the scientific names in any of the book, please make a note, these names are always printed in italics. Point number one. Point number two, these names when they are printed, genus name, the first letter is always capital, species, the first letter is always small. Second point. Third point, when we write, that is handwritten, if you write that, you need to first know this capital and small letter. Yes, of course. Apart from that, you need to underline the genus and the species separately. These are the rules of writing binomial nomenclature of a particular animal, fruit or a plant, anything. Yes. So this is about the lesson diversity in living organism. Now we completed this lesson today. This lesson is quite complex, but if you watch the video again and again, understand the concepts of plant kingdom, its classification, animal kingdom, its classification, you can understand the concept much better. So if you have any doubt in today's class, you can call on the same day of the video set. Thank you.